Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the 757 Renaissance Man. Today, I have an episode that I have been very, very excited to bring to you guys. I want to introduce you to Sagi of Tech Gear Talk on YouTube. He is my digital godfather. He helped me get to the place I am today. If it wasn't for him, it'll be none of this. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Sagi. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. And I mean, look at all that crispiness. Those of you can see, man, it just looks nice.
Yeah, man. So a lot of people know my story that I initially wanted to be a vlogger. I wanted to go around and show, highlight my city and talk to different important people going on. But then COVID hit. But while I was researching, I'm a single father, single dad, got 2 kids. So budget is really important. And I'm one of those type of people, when I start researching what I need, I go all in. And it's hours and hours and hours and hours on the internet. And I came across Sagi's channel because by then I had already figured out the camera that I wanted. I needed that little push, which is the Canon M50, which is arguably one of the best vlogging cameras or YouTube cameras you can get right now. And Sagi helped make my mind of that, and I watched many hours of his content just to make sure I was spending the right money on the right things. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that was really my focus when I started the channel. Like I'm just like you. If I'm going to go buy something, I'm reading everything. I'm like looking for like real life testimonials. I want to see, I want to make sure that it's going to work for what I need and, that it's a good value. And I probably do it to an extreme. If you ask my wife, she's like, oh my God, it doesn't matter. Just buy the more expensive one. It doesn't matter. Like the amount of time you're spending isn't worth like the difference in the price. But it's like something in my head. I'm like, no. I really want to find the best value.
Because I'm one of those guys that if I'm promised that it would do something, even if I never, ever have intention of using that feature, I got to see it work at least once.
Yeah. And, and for me, it's like, I'm big into the actual performance, because being able to do something and being able to do something well are like 2 completely different things. So just because a camera can shoot in 4K doesn't mean it can do that very well.
Right.
Just to give a very simple example. And that's, again, like for me, when I'm watching YouTube and I'm watching other YouTubers like reviewing and giving advice, that's why I want to see you use it. I want you to tell me. I can read the specs on the box and read that myself. I can read it online. I want to know what it was like to actually use it. And that's where I think the real value is, other than entertainment.
I'm in the hole about $1,200 because of you.
I'm sorry. You know my saying, buy it nice or buy it twice.
Right,
though,
and it's so
I'd
real.
rather have you buy the right thing.
And all right, so I don't want nobody to get mad at me, but we're kind of going through that right now with my church. We're doing live streaming, and we're in a point where we're trying to, integrate what we already have with, new equipment. And it's come up a couple times where, trying to save a couple dollars, we ended up having to reinvest in something. So, and in the back of my head, buy it nice or buy it twice.
I mean, isn't that the worst when you're like, okay, I can buy this one or this one, and you ended up, it's not that you always have to buy the more expensive one either.
Right,
That's
right.
that's not it. But the worst is to buy the cheaper one and then have to buy the more expensive one.
Because you
And
went cheap,
now,
right?
yep, and now the more expensive one costs you like even more than it would have up front because you got the wrong
Or
one, and
during
then you have to
or
go
during
through the
COVID, it's
frustration.
sold out because everybody wants to be a creative now.
Yep, yep, and so and it's interesting. Like when I talk about gear, um, like ease of use is also really important to me. So there are like specific reasons why I would invest in gear, and I feel like a lot of people fall into the trap of like that. So and so said this was the best camera.
Mhm.
And then my question is like, well, why is it the best camera? Is it because it has the most features? Is it the most powerful camera? That just means it's the most powerful camera. It doesn't mean it's the best camera.
Mhm.
Because if every time you go to use it, you're frustrated because it's just not working for you, or you need a fully articulating screen and you don't have one, or you want a touch screen and you don't have whatever it is, like it's I almost look at features as like some of them are just nice to have. Like beyond the binary ones of like the things that you actually need, the rest of them are nice to have. And I think usability and the fact that every time you go use a piece of gear, whatever it is, it's easy to use. Oh, that's so nice in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. So getting on that, let's talk about this Canon M50.
All right.
I'm gonna tell you my frustration up front, and
Okay.
it's not even well, it is a little bit with this one, but it's kind of with the Mark II,
Okay.
because now I'm all in, and I not only have one M50, I have two M50s.
All right.
But now my podcast is growing, and the video side of it is growing.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to start doing in-person interviews, right?
Yep.
My number
I know where you're
one
going.
problem is the clean HDMI
Oh, in the original.
in the original,
Yeah.
because now I want to get an ATEM Mini and do
Mm-hmm.
switching, but
Yep.
it's not going to work because, well, it'll work, but it's not going to look great because no clean HDMI out.
Yeah. And I mean, that is one of the reasons to get the two instead of the one.
Mm-hmm. I don't care
Um,
about the 4K because in
no,
all
it's the same.
actuality, most people can't even see 4K. And if my content is for YouTube, right, and if my content is for YouTube, you're only going to watch it on so big of a screen anyway. And even if you are
Yep.
watching it on a TV that does 4K, you have the ability to get 4K. YouTube's going to compress it anyway.
Yep. And it's not just right. It's not just that the camera can do it. You now have to deal with files that are a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You need a computer that's powerful enough to edit them, unless you're using proxies. You need more storage. I have an A7S III, and I have 120 frames per second 4K files. They're ridiculous. When I compare them to like what I normally get, it's unbelievable. Um, so, and I always tell people like 4K is not going to make your video better. A bad video in 4K is just a bigger bad video.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And a good video, I've never watched a good 1080p video and was like, oh, well, this is complete trash. I mean, but if the exact same thing was 4K, then it would just be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly, 4K has its advantages. I'm not saying, but sort of like you said, you know what your video is for. You know your target audience and what they're using,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of them, and then you prioritize, right? Because that's what it comes down to. It comes down to prioritizing. If everyone said to you, you have unlimited budget, you can just get whatever you want, all the gear that you want, okay, you might make other choices, but that's not a reality for most people.
Right, right.
So now you have one Mark I and one Mark II, or you have two Mark
Two Mark
Is.
Ones. Two Mark Ones.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my only
Okay.
thing. So I'm thinking about
What are you
trying
thinking?
to find now. Okay, in a perfect world, I'm gonna tell you the perfect camera I really, 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 really want. I want the R6.
Okay.
for what I'm doing. And it goes back to that because you got to look at what you're going to use it for. For what I'm going to
Yep.
use it for, I don't need the R5. I don't need that new one they just announced. But the R6 would be perfect. The main reason out of all, the dual SD card slots.
Yeah.
I don't need
That's
any
nice to have.
adapters, no, nothing crazy. And I think dual SDs will rock. You get 256 gig cards. I'm good. I'm shooting all day long.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and to be able to have backup if it's like something that's critical that you're not going to be able to do again, that's always nice. Um, and now the cards are so big,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you get a couple of 512. Like I have a 1 terabyte card in one of my cameras. I don't think I've ever deleted anything off of it yet. If I should, but like literally, it goes back months. For my setup for YouTube, I have 4 cameras. Um, but yeah, and one of them, I just had that card. That's the one that I use, and I still haven't deleted anything off of it.
And since I've been
Um,
doing this, I rarely record video to an SD card anyway.
you just yeah, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, the R6 will be a really nice camera, and then you just need to decide whether you like go into RF lenses, like
Right.
'cause
And
that's
that's a whole nother thing. So
whew,
I think the camera realistically, I'm looking for it maybe be used RP for now.
okay.
Because I still have to, and I'm using primarily, even with my M50, I'm using primarily EF lenses.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I figure I'll get the most use out of it across the different types.
Yeah.
And
And
because
those
of
lenses.
you, the only native EFM lens that I have is the Sigma 16 millimeter.
Yeah, that's a nice lens to have. I mean, it serves a very specific purpose,
Yeah.
right? In a really good way. And it's interesting because like you could see as you're growing that lenses become like it's such a huge consideration,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why a lot of times, like a lot of what I try to do, especially in the camera space, is educational. And I hear people are choosing between, let's just say, a Sony A6600 and an A7 III, right? One is an APS-C sensor camera, and the other one is full frame. And or they'll look at the price and they'll say, well, it's not so far off. And I'm like, okay, but on the one, you're going to be buying full frame lenses. You could put an APS-C mode, but then why buy it? So if you're buying it for full frame, that difference in the price of the body, that's not going to be where you're going to be spending your money. It's
It's
every
the
lens you buy.
lens. Yeah.
And that's if you look on the other side of it is if you buy a good lens now, you never have to replace it. I mean, I have lenses back here that I bought like more than 10 years ago. I still have no reason to replace them. Are there newer, better versions of them? Sure. And are they better enough for what I do to ever justify spending that money again? No.
Right.
So, there's the saying that you date your camera body, but you marry your lenses.
Mm-hmm.
So, you buy one good lens. I mean, if you don't drop it, it's glass and good. Like nothing's happening to it. Camera bodies, you like the number of camera bodies I've bought since I got those lenses. I'm not even allowed to talk about.
Right. Yeah. So your camera body is expendable. But with that said, that's one reason why I won't buy any more EFM lenses.
That makes
Because
sense.
they're stuck. I'm stuck on, maybe if I
Yep.
get a Mark II, maybe I might buy that Sigma 56 millimeter just for portraits and stuff.
That's
But
a beautiful lens for portrait.
but then I'll have 3 camera bodies that I could use the one lens on, But
Right.
anything newer than anything else, no, it's going to be a great. I'm looking into L series EF lenses because even if I do upgrade and get the RP, I can use it with the RP or I can use it with
Yep.
the M50.
Yeah, and I mean with the adapter. So when I reviewed the RP and the R, I used some RF lenses, but I used all my EF lenses, all my L series glass. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
So that's, I think investing in lenses is all, like if you give me an average camera with a great lens
Mm-hmm.
versus a great camera with an average lens, I'm always going to go for the average camera with the great lens. Like that is going to make a much bigger difference in overall image quality than the body.
Yes, all the time.
Um, so, and then of course, lighting and audio.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think the average person probably spends like 90% of their time picking the camera. They then spend like 8% of the time, the rest of their time thinking about a lens. And then it's like, oh yeah, I need audio and lighting. And I would probably do that in reverse. I
Mm-hmm.
would make sure your audio is good, your lighting. If your lighting is not good, it doesn't matter what gear you have.
Right, right.
Because even if you have cameras that could see practically in the dark, like the A7S III,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that yeah, the image will be cleaner. It won't be grainy necessarily or as grainy with bad lighting. But if you are using overhead lighting, you can't make that look good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times people look at content that someone is creating and they think, oh, if I just upgrade my camera from what I have to what they're using, that will change. My content will then look like theirs. And honestly, you should upgrade your lighting
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see. I mean, like your lighting looks great. I know we talked about it a little bit before the show, but you can't accomplish that with overhead lighting.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of tricks that you kind of got to learn with the light. So I think, number one is your lens. I think, like you say, two is your lighting, and lighting is not that big of an investment compared to the lens.
Oh,
Lighting, you can get a decent lighting kit for less than $100 and come off with like 3 good lights, and
I,
then your
and
camera
that
body,
100 bucks, you're
and then
right.
your
Go
mic.
ahead.
Yeah,
No,
because
but you're absolutely right. And you don't need $1,000 lights.
no,
There are reasons why $1,000 lights are better than inexpensive lights. But first of all, any intentional lights, any lights are going to be better than available lights for the most part.
Mhm.
Um, they're all going to be better than overhead lighting. That's for sure. I don't care if you put a desk lamp right in front of you right here.
Mhm.
And you turn off your overhead light and it's already better.
Right.
So you hit the nail on the head. It's like the most affordable, like mic and light is like the most affordable part.
Hmm.
And I don't know. So
And that's usually
I
the
don't know if
last thing people go after.
yeah, or they like don't value it at all. And they're like, well, I'll just use whatever light I have, or like I'll use natural light, like a window, which look is great when you're in a bind. But the problem is you sit by a window and you fix your exposure and then a cloud
Then it
comes by
changes. Right, right.
and now it's like everything's getting darker and lighter. That's why what I normally tell people is turn off all the lights, have no lights, and then start building your lighting. You have one light, cool. You're gonna put it right here. You got 2 lights, then you decide you want a fill light or you want a rim light back. But it doesn't matter. But start with no light because then you're controlling everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I did in this office/studio is block all the windows
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want anything. I want to control everything. And not only does that let me get exactly the look that I want, it also means it's super easy because when I sit down, I'm not guessing. The exposure is not changing on any of the cameras. I just go turn all the lights on and it looks like this every time.
Mm-hmm.
So it saves me, it makes my process more efficient, which, for YouTube, obviously, well, for anything, it's very important, but for YouTube, it's super helpful.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. And I'm good. I'm one of your disciples, bro. So the first thing I did when I intentionally started building my little studio here is I bought blackout curtains for Amazon. It's blackout curtains on this whole floor so I can control the lights. And I'm in a real small space, and it's little tricks that I learned. Like my background back there. My
Mm-hmm.
light that's right here next to me isn't necessarily shining on me, it's shining on the background. And I learned a little trick about how that kind of pulls the separation out a little bit. And it's just this little teeny things that you
Yep.
get a little tweaks that don't cost much.
Right. And you're learn and the important thing is to like learn like you did why you're doing something.
Mhm.
So again, our situations are sort of like the easiest because we're setting it up one time, we can make adjustments and it stays like that. But if you're in a situation where you are going to go vlogging like you wanted to,
You don't have
then it's
control.
important,
Mhm.
right? Then it's important for you to know, where should I stand? Should I stand in direct sunlight? No.
Mhm.
And yeah, and when you start understanding lighting, you start looking for things. You walk into a space, you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to someone. We're going to talk over there because if we sit over here in about a half hour, the sun is going to move. I mean, I'm going to get, a bright spot right on
Right.
someone's head. So it's understanding those things that saves you, because you go and do an interview with someone, it's done. You're not going to go do it over. So, it's, yeah, it's great. I love to see that you're not just watching. Here's the next thing. You're not just watching, you're executing. You're learning, you're trying, and you're executing. Because you only need to watch so many tutorials,
Right.
and then it's time to do it.
So my next thing is to get my lights like yours. I already have the LED lights for the background. I just don't have a room that's deep enough. That's my problem right now. My room is too short. Like from
So lights like mine in what way?
in your background, the
okay.
accent lights. Like I have them, but I'm too close to this wall back here to really do it.
I think it looks nice.
Thank you. My son was playing. So my son is a budding YouTuber, and he's 10.
Nice.
So he took my little LED light. It's like on a little Gorilla Pod, and shot his video with the same background, but he wanted to be different. So he put a red light back there and turned all the lights down and did one of these numbers. And it looked great.
Sweet.
Right. It looked great.
You could do that. You could be like, look, you can have red. I'm taking whatever other color. You guys separate your content. But no,
But now I'm kind of stuck in it because I got so many episodes done with this background. People will now recognize the background.
Yeah.
So I'm a little stuck a little bit. Like I'm gonna change it eventually, but I gotta let this rock for a little while because it's almost like a trademark. I even got a new logo made with my little avatar, and I see the little avatar in the corner with me sitting at the desk. That's the transparent version. The version that I'm gonna get put on my merch got the background in it.
Oh, then you can't go anywhere. You're
right, I'm stuck. So, all right. So now while I got you, let's talk about mics.
Okay.
I see you had the big boy. You got the big daddy.
Yep.
And eventually I might be going that route, but for now, I got the little brother. I got the MV7.
So that is a wonderful mic. So I just switched to this mic maybe about a week ago. So I actually used to shoot my videos over there, which is where my main workstation is. And because I was surrounded by windows on 3 sides and I have curtains on all of them, the audio quality over there was way better. Then I moved over here and I needed to add a lot of sound treatment here. And I was using a shotgun microphone, the same one that I used over there. And that goes to show you, like, gear, same camera, same everything. It sounded horrible over here. And that's why I just switched to this microphone, because there's less reverb. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, because normally in my videos, it's not in the frame like this. It's out of frame up here. But it still sounds much better than my shotgun microphone.
And it's kind of the 7B is almost like a status symbol. So,
all right. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You need to add a cloud lifter to it because it's not louder. So it's like you look at the price and it's going to be that plus $100. But I look at a mic. A good mic is a wonderful investment because, once again, if you don't drop it, it's going to be a good mic 10 years from now. Like, this is not a new mic now. So it's one of those things, again, like lighting. if nothing happens to your lighting, it's great today. It's going to be great next year. It's going to be great 5 years from now. Like what are they? They're actually not going to come out with lights that are going to make your lights worse. They'll just come out with lights that have different features. Like they'll be brighter or small and smaller, or make less noise, or might not need cooling, right? But these two pieces of gear aren't getting worse with time. There's like, it's not going to move from 1080p to 4K. Like, it doesn't matter for your lights. If your lights light you.
And that particular mic has been around for almost 20 years.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like and that's, you know, when we were talking about like cameras versus lenses, you got to look at the technology. Like the technology of lenses hasn't changed like drastically. I mean, there have been improvements clearly, but if you look at cameras from 5 years ago versus what we have today, or 10 years ago versus what we have today, and then you look at lenses from 5 or 10 years ago, the delta in the cameras is way higher.
Yeah.
So that's another way to look at where am I willing to invest, because clearly every time you replace your gear, you're not losing money, but let's say you're losing money. So you buy a mic and use it for 15 years. It almost, like, what's the difference between a $400 mic and a $200 mic if you're using it for 15 years? I mean, it matters now because it's either in your budget or not. But in terms of the investment, you just spread that $200 over 15 years. Conceptually, again, assuming that it's in the budget. There's always going to be, listen, there are mics that cost $20,000 that no one needs. I mean, somebody needs them, but we don't. And then, you know, like every other piece of gear, it's learning how to use it. That's actually going to make the difference, right? I can give your lighting setup to someone who doesn't know how to use lights. They're not going to get that look. That gear isn't going to help them if they don't know where to position the lights. You know, one of the things that you mentioned is you had to think about the fact that you're wearing glasses and you don't want a reflection of the light in your glasses. If someone's not thinking about it, they put that like a light right behind the camera. And what am I going to see? Nothing. Just
yeah. And they get caught up. Like, I wanted the whole little ring light effect in my eyes and all that, but nah, we can't do that. It looks crazy.
It's
So
there was a time where that was a thing, right?
Yeah, the whole ring light thing. And you know, before I even got into it and I knew what it was, I thought it was like some kind of lens. I didn't realize it was the reflection of the light in your eye.
Yep, definitely.
I want one of those lenses one day.
Then you were like, maybe not.
So when you record your videos, how do you record your audio?
I actually I use Overkill for YouTube, but because it was what I had, because of what I was, I'll get to my gear, but I'm using a cinema camera. I'm using a Canon C200 right here. And so it has XLR inputs. So this is actually going to the cloud lifter right into the camera.
Okay. So
that simplifies my audio. I don't need to sync it in post, which wouldn't be a big deal. But again, I want as few steps as possible, unless someone said to me, if you recorded this to an external source, it would be that much better. Like if it was actually noticeably better, I would do it. I don't know. I think it's good enough for what we're doing.
And a lot of your videos are just you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I've ever had it's always just me.
We might have to change that. We might have to be a guest one day.
Well, let's do it. Right. But yeah, so I haven't, you know, again, one of those things where I'm saying it's like simple. It's simple because it's just repeatable. It's the same setup. If I had two people, so actually my cinema camera has two XLR inputs. I would just set up another microphone and record the other person on a separate channel.
Yeah. I'm always curious about everybody's workflow.
So I have a Canon C200 over here, a Canon C100 Mark II over here, another Canon C100 Mark II over here, and I'm actually using, this is a disgrace, a Sony A7S III for my overhead
For your
camera
overhead, yeah.
because I have it. And start the video, give 3 claps, record. They all have unlimited recording. So one of the reasons why I started with a 5D Mark II and a 5D Mark III.
Okay.
And I used those for my first few videos, but I talk a lot. So those 2 cameras have a 30-minute record limit, just like the Canon M50. So, and the Canons, like the Sony actually makes a sound if something happened. Like if you filled up the card and it stopped recording, it will make a beep. But the Canons, like the M50 and my 5D Mark II and 3, they just stop recording. So if you're not paying attention, here I am recording an extra 15 minutes of video, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta go redo that whole thing again. Then I learned, and I had my iPhone set for like a 29-minute timer, and I'd have to remember to do that. But so I did this primarily for convenience because I wanted to be able to bring the microphone into the camera, and I wanted to have unlimited recording. Those were the reasons. Oh, and I wanted a built-in ND filter. So I actually upgraded to cinema cameras for convenience, not for the quality.
But again, you can still use all your EF lenses.
And I can, well, yes. So, and by the way, a lot of people are like, oh, I need to have full frame. I need to have full frame. Cinema cameras are not full frames. There are some now, but these aren't full frame. They're all Super 35, which is pretty much APS-C. Which is great because I can use, like, my favorite lens. My favorite lens is the Sigma 18-35. I think it's the best value lens ever. Like, for what you get out of it, I mean, I wouldn't use it for vlogging necessarily because it's so heavy, but for what you get out of it for the price, it's awesome. So that's what I have on my main camera. And again, it's an APS-C lens, no problem.
Awesome. So I'm using I fell in love with the Zoom products. One reason is, so when I started the whole I'm going to do the podcast thing, I always knew, since I had already invested in the money, it's going to be a video counterpart to it. And I started doing them with Zoom because that's what everybody uses, right? But Zoom is not really all that reliable. And I've had times where Zoom would just crash and you'll lose half of it. So then I realized that I need some kind of audio recorder. So at least I
what Zoom were you using?
The recorder that I'm using?
Yeah.
I mean Zoom, the video conferencing app.
I was thinking Zoom, the video recorder. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I mean the audio recorder.
Yeah. So, but that's what I went to. It was fun. I had to get a Zoom to use with my Zoom, but yeah.
Okay.
So I lost an episode, and I was like, because I always heard about it. That was the one thing you don't want to do, and I was crushed. So I started looking into options, and at first I was going to buy H6, which one day I may still buy H6 because going out and recording and shooting movies and things, I probably will still use it. But I ended up getting the PodTrack P4.
Okay.
That's like the little brother of the P8, which is the cousin to the Rodecaster. Yeah. So, and that turned out to be perfect. And it has, one reason I was looking at that mic, it has the gain to push that mic if I really wanted to. But I ended up with the little brother, and I'm pretty happy with it for right now. And for the price of that, I can get 2 of these. And since I'm interviewing people, that's a little bit more value for me.
Absolutely. And again, there are levels to this, right? You can, we all know you can always buy better gear. You can always spend more money. And while, I say buy it nicer, buy it twice. But even within that, there are levels. So your investment right now is plenty good for what you're doing right now, and probably plenty good for what you'll do for a couple of years.
Right.
Yep. And by the time, if you reach a point where you need more, then you're at a different position as far as the business, and then you can reinvest. But for now, that's not taken away from anything that you can do realistically. So I think you got a great setup.
But I got the extra step where I got to sync it in post, which
Yep.
once you do it a couple times, and programs like Premiere make it so easy nowadays. You don't have to do the zoom it out, line it up, and all that anymore. It's just a couple buttons. I have to fine tune it a little bit sometimes, but that's the extra couple seconds.
You can't come out of it into where you record right now. Are you recording to your computer?
Well, okay, so StreamYard is recording.
You're recording it through StreamYard.
And my Zoom is recording onto the SD card.
Okay.
And if I really wanted to, because of the Zoom, I could open up like Audition and be recording there too.
Right. So I was actually helping someone create a setup. And what we did is we went through OBS and then used OBS virtual camera. So essentially they were recording it locally through OBS, even though they were streaming it also. And then they recorded it with the audio, even though they had separate audio. So that's another option we can talk about at some point. I don't want to bore the listeners.
Yeah, I meant to, at the beginning of this episode, I meant to give my technical disclaimer. But if you still on, you're too late now.
You're stuck.
You're going to learn if you like it or not. But yeah, I'm really happy with it, and I'm going, especially since in-person interviews are starting, I'm getting ready to get the P8. I'm going to bite the bullet and buy the P8.
All right. And so do you have some stuff planned out already?
I do. And it's funny how things work out. I had somebody reach out to me. I was going to interview an artist, but their management has a venue. And they were like, well, you want to do it in person? And I was like, well, let me check out the space. And so I'm checking out the space this weekend. And then it was like, well, we could work something out where, you use our space if you promote it.
Oh, so, on it, not just for this.
Yeah, for ongoing, for all my in-person interviews will be there.
Hey, that is right.
Yeah.
Man, it's good karma.
Yeah. It's all thanks to Sagi.
No, all thanks to you actually doing things. I could sit there and talk all day, but if you're not going and executing and not doing it, it doesn't matter. It's it's like I laugh. I don't laugh. Like I'll joke around about the fact that like I would rather have someone watch like 2 video editing tutorials and then go edit 50 videos than you watching 50 editing tutorials and just edit 2 videos. Because you really only learn by actually doing. And I think that like this whole YouTube space or having a podcast, whatever it is that's sort of a creative process, you got to get the reps in. That's really the only way to get better. Like you can't get better on camera without being on camera. You can't watch videos. You can watch videos about how to get better on camera, but you're actually only getting better once you do those things. Like otherwise you just know how it is done, but you don't know how to do it. I guess that's the difference there. Like you can learn how videos are edited, but you can't learn how to edit videos unless you edit videos.
Yeah.
So for you, like what I mean, I don't know where you want to take it from here.
I want to talk about StreamYard because again, you came through with anything that at this point, anything that you suggested me, I'm going to at least try it. And we were talking about this, and we were going to do Zoom, and he's like, "No, what this thing called StreamYard?" And I was like, "Okay, I give it a try." So I'm gonna tell you why I was upset with Zoom.
Okay.
The reliability.
Bring it.
It was unreliable. It's cool for a meeting, but if you're recording and you're trying to get production,
you're right. Because a meeting, worst case scenario, you send out another email, everybody gets on.
Right. You got all day. But if I'm interviewing, I got the one shot to do it. They kind of mislead you. They say when you pay for the plan, you get in high definition. Okay, they don't say high definition caps out at 720p.
Right.
Which we had a conversation about 4K versus 1080, but I think the value between 720 and 1080 is really noticeable.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
because
you don't get that much quality. You don't lose as much. You don't lose as much going from 1080 to 4K, but you will from 720 to the 1080.
Yeah,
it's really noticeable.
And 1080 is like standard. It's like expected at this point.
Right.
Like I know 4K has been around, but 4K is now really expected. So, and you said it in the beginning. Here's what's interesting. Even if I'm working on a 4K display, I won't say never because I don't want to say never, but I very rarely have the player like full screen because I'm usually doing something else. So even though the display could show it in 4K, I'm still only using the left half of the display or the top left corner, even though I could. So it's like when I even look at my own behavior, I watch very, very little content in 4K. I know there are people who do, but I normally like to look at like a bell curve of what everyone is doing. And like, I don't need the top 3% necessarily.
Right. And then like we said earlier, I like to use what I pay for. So I bought the M50 to shoot 1080p. And then, I want to get my 1080p. And I was like, my video's looking ashy and I don't really like it. And there's nothing I can do to adjust it. The sound is okay when the greatest. Like I could if something were to happen to my recorder right now, I trust the sound coming out of StreamYard versus the sound that came out of Zoom. Zoom was cool. It did do multi-track, but it was a lot of compression in there. So when I got to this and now I got tricks, I can, let's play with some of the tricks.
Do it.
And in StreamYard, if you're hearing this, first of all, you need to break Sagi off, and then I want to be broken off too. But you can change your layout.
Yep.
I can go back here. I can do banners.
Boom.
I could, like my friend at church says, I could dress the feed. Throw up the Cash App real quick. I can totally change around. Like I'm in love with playing with you. So that's my frame. I can take the frame off.
Yep.
I can add the frame.
And it's so easy.
Oh, hold on, but watch this. You can add. So when I'm doing lives, I actually play my theme, and it goes a little something like this.
Nice.
I could change my background. I could change the background around totally.
And you can go full screen. You can put me full screen. You can share your screen, and all that without really needing any technical knowledge. And that's really why I had no problems recommending it for you, because I knew right away. I knew as soon as you jumped in, you'd be like, "Oh, this platform works great."
And then I can stream to multiple locations. I mean, you can't do all the locations, but all the locations I'm at. And not only like, so if I stream to Facebook, I can stream to my personal Facebook page, the 757 Renaissance page. I can stream to groups if I got permission, and stream to YouTube all at the same time.
I mean, I remember seeing StreamYard for the first time. Well, I remember hearing about it or like finding it on the web, and I was reading and I'm like, it can't really be that easy, because it's not like, if you're using OBS, for example, and you want to bring a guest on, you could do it, but it's not really super easy to do. And I remember seeing StreamYard and just thinking, there's no way it's going to work this well. Like it's browser based. And the first time I used it, I'm like, oh, this is great. And this was before they didn't.
And I don't even really use it for lives. I've been using it for my recording. I've been playing with lives since I have that ability, but most people get it for lives. But I've been using it for my recordings. It's great.
Yeah, it's
for a one-man production. it makes me look good.
It's
And
great.
that's what I like.
Man, I'm so glad you're happy with it.
Yeah, man, I like it.
I know you'd let me know, right? I'd hear about it.
Oh yeah, you would have known. I'll
like,
tell the truth.
what is this trash you're sending my way over here? I'm disappointed.
But I haven't went back to Zoom since. I'll use it for like to have meetings with people. But right now, it's this. There's another platform out there I'm looking at, but yeah, StreamYard, send me a check. But I'm pretty happy with StreamYard. You know,
great, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. So
go ahead.
I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the interview because I really do appreciate you taking the time out your day. I know what it takes to be a creator. I appreciate you just taking the time just to speak with me. It is so awesome. You totally made my day. But I had two good pieces of news today. First of all, I had this interview with you, so that's great. But I got invited to speak at a podcasting conference called Share Your Pod. And being that I've only been in this for, you might say realistically, since January and already being recognized, I'm head over heels today. Nothing can happen right now. A meteor can come down and smash my car and I'm good with it.
You walking around smiling.
Yeah, man.
It was a really pretty meteor. Nice.
So I'm gonna give you,
man. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm gonna end it out like I end out all my episodes. If somebody came to you, a younger version of us came to you and said, I'm interested in getting into the YouTube tech space, what advice would you give them?
Okay. The first thing I would say is you're never going to be ready. So just start now. Like one of the things I hear most of the time is I'll start when fill in the blanks. I'll start when I have that camera. I'll start when I have that microphone. I'll start when I have that lighting. I'll start when I have that background lighting. I'll start when I get this software. It doesn't matter. Start right now. Whether it's a podcast or YouTube or whatever it is, you're never going to have all the answers before you start. So just start. There are so many things to get better at. That's exactly what I would have told myself. You need to get better at being on camera. So you need to be on camera more. You need to be better at editing your videos. So you need to edit more videos. You need to be better at lighting. You can't actually get better without actually trying all these things. So there are all these things that I needed to get better at and still need to get better at, that I'm only getting better at by getting more reps. So that would be the first advice I would give. Just get started. Just get started with what you have. Get started now. Don't worry about advice number 2. It's going to go hand in hand. Advice number 2 will be, don't compare yourself to someone else. I think that this is on like multiple levels. On the one hand, some people look at like larger creators and they're like, oh, well, they could put out any video and get 10 million views. My first answer is that's got nothing to do with you. That's fact. Their views have nothing to do with you. That's not even taking into account what they did to get to where they are. But even if it was some unicorn situation where someone's first video blew up, it's got nothing to do with you. You got your work to do, so go ahead and do that. And also, don't compare yourself in the way that you're like, I'm not as good as someone else. Like, don't compare your beginning, your chapter 1, to somebody else's chapter 6,542. You are where you are. You can't move forward without taking that first step. Bring us back to where we were. Just start.
Awesome. And how can everybody get in touch with you? What's your social medias? And of course, give them the YouTube channel.
So I am Tech Gear Talk at Tech Gear Talk on all the socials. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all at Tech Gear Talk.
Again, sir, I want to thank you for your time. Also, shout out to your your Funko Pops for all the work that they do in the lens comparisons.
They work hard.
They work very hard.
Yeah, a bunch of them back there.
So
they're just out of frame.
I want to thank you again. I wouldn't be at this point that I am if it wasn't for the advice that I've gotten from you. And you know, I'm a believer that you need to give a person their flowers while they can still smell them. So here are your flowers, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that I could play a small part and be helpful. And again, thank you so much for having me on.
There would be no 757 Renaissance Man without Sagi.
Well, I'm glad it happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another episode of the 757 Renaissance Man. I am Sean, that's Sagi, and we are out.
All right, goodbye.